Hi, today's story is from Tatterhood and Other Tales, and it is called Kamala and the Seven Thieves. In a Punjabi village long ago, there lived a woman named Kamala. Her husband, a barber, was a cheerful fellow who would much rather sit in the dusty square and gossip than practice his trade. So, of course, they became poorer and poorer until one day there was not a penny left in the house for food. "Business has been very slow," said the barber. "Even the traders in the market say so." "That may be," answered Kamala, "but I don't intend to starve. The Rajah is holding a great wedding feast at the palace. You must go to him and ask for something. It would be bad luck to refuse you on such an occasion." The barber sighed, but off he went to the palace. When he was brought before the Rajah to make his plea, he was too dazzled by the brilliant silks and the sparkling jewels and the huge feathered fans moving to and fro to think very clearly. The thought of food or alms simply flew out of his mind. "Speak up," snapped the vizier. The poor barber stammered that he hoped the Rajah would give him something. "Something?" said the Rajah impatiently. "What thing?" Anything. Anything you don't need," blurted the barber. "Give him a piece of wasteland near his village," ordered the Rajah. This was done, and the barber went home, quite relieved that the ordeal was over. "Wasteland?" exclaimed Kamala, who had had her cooking pots cleaned and ready. "And how will I cook that for our dinner?" "Land is land," said the barber solemnly. "So it is, but what good is wasteland unless we till it? Where are we to get bullocks and plow, or seed?" The barber could give no answer. So, being a resourceful woman, Kamala sat down to think of a plan to make the best of their situation. The next day she took her husband with her and set off for the piece of wasteland. Telling her husband to imitate her, she began walking about the field, peering anxiously at the ground and poking it here and there with a sharp stick. When anyone came that way, they would sit down and pretend to be doing nothing at all. This strange behavior caught the attention of two thieves passing by. They immediately summoned the rest of their gang, and all 7 of them hid in the bushes nearby. They watched the couple all day, for they were convinced that something mysterious was going on. After arguing about it endlessly, one of the thieves was sent to find out. Kamala pretended to be evasive, but finally she said, "It is a family secret. You must promise not to tell a soul." Of course, the thief eagerly promised to keep the secret. "The fact is," said Kamala solemnly, "we've just learned this field of ours has 5 pots of gold buried in it. We were just trying to discover the exact spot before beginning to dig tomorrow." With that, Kamala and her husband returned home, and the thief ran to his companions to tell them of the hidden treasure. The 7 thieves set to work at once. All night long they dug and turned over the earth in a perfect frenzy, until the field looked as if it had been plowed 7 times over. But not a gold piece or even a penny did they find. When dawn came, they went away, tired and disgusted, grumbling over their blistered hands. The next day, when Kamala found the field so well plowed, she was delighted at the success of her plan. She hurried to the grain dealer's shop and borrowed rice to sow in the field, promising to pay it back with interest at harvest time. And so she did, for there never was such a fine crop. Kamala paid her debts, kept some rice for the house, and sold the rest for enough gold pieces to fill a large earthen crock. When the thieves saw this, they were very angry indeed. They hastened to the barber's hut and confronted Kamala. "Give us a share of the harvest money," they demanded brazenly. "We dug up the ground for you. You can't deny that." Kamala simply laughed at them. "I told you there was gold in the ground. You tried to find it to steal it, didn't you? But I knew how to get gold from the earth, and you rascals shan't have a penny of it. If you won't give us a share of it, we'll take it." "You will have to find it first," Kamala retorted, and slammed the door on them. Nonetheless, she kept a sharp lookout, and that evening she noticed one of the thieves had crept up to the house and hidden himself under the open window. "What have you done with the gold, my dear?" asked the barber. "I hope you haven't put it under our pillows." "Don't be alarmed," she said in a loud voice. "The gold is not in the house. I have hung it in the branches of the nim tree outside. No one will think of looking for it there." The thief outside the window heard this, as he was meant to, and he hurried off, chuckling, to tell his companions. When everyone had gone to sleep, the band of thieves gathered under the tree. "There it is!" cried the captain of the band, peering up into the branches. "One of you go up and bring it down." Now, what he saw was really a hornet's nest full of great brown and yellow hornets, but in the faint moonlight it looked like a bag of gold. So one of the thieves climbed up the tree, but when he came close and was just reaching up to take hold of it, a hornet flew out and stung him on the thigh, causing him to clap his hand to the spot. The watchers below cried out angrily, "He is taking gold pieces for himself. He's put one in his pocket." "I am not," retorted the thief. "Something bit me." But just at that moment, another hornet stung him on the breast, and he smacked his hand there. "We saw you," cried the thieves below, and they sent up another man to bring down the gold. But he fared no better, for the hornets were by now thoroughly aroused, and he, too, began to smack his hands about him. The other thieves danced with rage, convinced he was also pocketing gold pieces. "They're stealing our gold!" bawled the thieves below, and one after another they climbed up into the tree, eager to get their share of the loot. As soon as they reached the branch nearest the hornet's nest, they all began slapping their clothes as if they were filling their pockets. The angry leader of the band climbed up last. Determined to have the prize, he seized hold of the hornet's nest. At that moment, the branch they were all standing on broke, and they all came tumbling to the ground with the hornet's nest on top of them. What a stampede there was! They scrambled off in all directions, with the buzzing hornets in pursuit. After that, Kamala and her husband saw nothing of the thieves for quite a while. They were all laid up with injuries, and the couple was very pleased to be rid of them. "They don't dare to come back," said Kamala to her husband. But she was wrong. The gang of thieves was planning its revenge. One night, when it was very hot, the barber and his wife put their beds outside to sleep. The thieves, seizing their chance, lifted up Kamala's bed and carried her off fast asleep. She woke to find herself borne along the heads of 4 of the thieves, while the other 3 ran along beside. She gave herself up for lost. There did not seem any way to escape. Then the robbers paused for breath under a large tree. Quick as a wink, she seized hold of a branch and swung herself into the tree, leaving the quilt on the bed just as if she were still in it. "Let us rest here a while," said the men carrying the bed. "There is plenty of time, and we're tired. She is dreadfully heavy." And they set their burden down to one side. Kamala kept very still, for it was a bright moonlit night. The thieves argued over who should stand first guard while the others slept. It fell to the leader, so he walked up and down as guard. Meanwhile, Kamala sat perched up in the tree like a great bird. Suddenly, she had an idea. Drawing the thin white material of her garment over her face, she began to sing softly. When the leader looked up and saw the veiled figure of a woman in a tree, he was, of course, surprised. But being a young fellow and quite vain about his looks, he at once decided it must be a fairy, or Peri, who had fallen in love with his handsome face. He had heard of such happenings, especially on moonlit nights. So he twirled his mustaches and strutted about, waiting for her to speak. But when she went on singing and took no notice of him, he stopped and called out, "Come down, my beauty. I won't hurt you." Still, she went on singing. So he climbed into the tree, smoothing his hair and patting his mustache as he went. When he came quite close, she turned her head away and uttered a long, mournful sigh. "What is the matter, my little one?" he asked tenderly. "You are a fairy, and you have fallen in love with me, but why should you sigh so sadly?" "Ah," sighed Kamala again. "I believe you are fickle. You will soon forget me." "Never," cried the leader of the thieves. "Take a bite of this fairy fruit, and then I shall know if you are sincere." As she said this, she plucked a large pomegranate from the tree and rammed it into the thief's open mouth. Startled, the thief tumbled off the branch and crashed to the ground, where he sat with his legs wide apart, looking as if he'd fallen from the sky. "What is the matter?" cried his comrades, awakened by the noise. "Ah, ah, ah," was all he could say as he pointed up into the tree, for his mouth was firmly gagged with the fruit, and he was too stunned to know what had happened. "The man is bewitched," cried one. "There must be a ghost in the tree." Just then, Kamala began flapping her veil and howling eerily. "Hoo-hoo!" The thieves were terrified. They ran off as fast as they could, dragging their leader behind them. When they were over the hill and out of sight, Kamala came down from the tree, balanced her cot on top of her head, and walked home. And that was the end of the attempt to steal the gold, for the robbers didn't stop running until they reached the next village, and they never came back. The end.